A flight attendant runs down the aisle of the Boeing 707. Businessman David Robb lowers his newspaper. Something is wrong. The attendant disappears into the cockpit, returning 30 seconds later with a pale face. Behind her, a young woman appears, holding a pistol in one hand, a grenade in the other. A voice crackles over the loudspeaker.
Attention, this plane has been taken over by the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine. Put your hands on your heads. Do not move.
144 passengers freeze in their seats, not knowing whether they'll make it to land, let alone home. This is the story of the biggest airplane hijacking in history and the week that changed aviation forever. David Robb boards TWA Flight 741 with 144 other passengers, families, businessmen, college students returning from summer abroad, a rabbi heading to a conference, an elderly couple celebrating their 40th anniversary. The Boeing 707 is nearly full. Flight attendants do their routine safety demonstration, and the plane takes off at 11:30 a.m. Robb orders coffee from the cart, opens his newspaper, just another routine flight. Barbara Mensch and her husband Jerry board Swiss Air Flight 100 after a European tour. Barbara takes the window seat. She's a nervous flyer. Jerry talks to distract her. Behind them, 141 other passengers settle in. Vacation photos, souvenirs, stories to tell back home. The DC-8 lifts off smoothly. At Schiphol Airport, 4 Palestinian militants split into 2 teams. Leila Khaled and Patrick Arguello head toward El Flight 219, Israel's national airline. 2 others with Senegalese passports follow behind. At the gate, El Airline security pulls Khaled's teammates aside. Something about their passports, sequential numbers, purchased last minute, too suspicious. They're removed from the flight. But the 2 rejected hijackers don't panic. They walk calmly to gate B7, Pan Am Flight 93. They buy first-class tickets with cash and board the Boeing 747. By noon, 4 planes are in the air over Europe. Different routes, different destinations. Over 600 passengers in total, but none of them know that armed militants from the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine are sitting among them. In 1967, Palestinian physician George Habash founded the PFLP, Marxist-Leninist ideology, secular, not religious extremists. Their goal? Force international attention on the Palestinian cause through attacks. In 1969, they successfully hijacked the TWA flight diverted to Damascus. This time, the plan is bigger. Robb sees the flight attendant running past. On her face is pure fear. The hijacker appears 30 seconds later. A young woman speaks into the PA system, identifies herself as a freedom fighter.
The plane is now under PFLP control.
A second hijacker, male, mid-30s, forces his way into the cockpit, gun pressed against the door. The captain tries to reason with him, but to no avail. The pilots have no choice. They turn the plane east. In the cabin, passengers sit frozen. Children cry. An old man has a panic attack. On the Swiss Air flight, the takeover is more violent. 2 hijackers storm the cockpit simultaneously, pointing guns at everyone. The hijacker shouts orders in broken English.
Hands up. Sit down. No talking. No moving. Anyone moves, dies.
The plane turned sharply east. Barbara Mensch is crying, and Jerry whispers that it'll be okay. Leila Khaled and Patrick Arguello make their move. Arguello rushes to the cockpit. He has 2 grenades. Khalid pulls out her weapons, screams at passengers to stay seated. But El Al has armed sky marshals on every flight, standard procedure since 1968. The pilot, Captain Udi Barlev, makes a split-second decision. He throws the plane into a steep dive, like a falling elevator. Passengers scream. Arguello loses his footing and crashes into the galley. A sky marshal shoots him. Other marshals tackle Khalid into a fight. One marshal is wounded. A flight attendant takes shrapnel in her arm, but they pin her to the floor. Captain Barlev diverts to London. Emergency landing at Heathrow. Khalid is arrested by British police. Arguello's body is removed. 1 hijacking stopped. 3 in progress. 2 hijackers rejected from El Al take over the 747. They storm the cockpit 20 minutes after takeoff. But then they see Dawson's Field on the map, an abandoned British Royal Air Force airstrip from World War II, 30 miles east of Amman, Jordan's capital. But there's a problem. The 747 is too big. The desert runway can't handle it. They force the pilots to divert to Beirut, then to Cairo. They'll destroy it there instead. 3 planes are now heading to the Middle East. Rob stares out the window as the plane descends. Endless desert, brown and barren for miles in every direction. Then a crude runway appears. Oil drums burning on both sides to mark the edges. Black smoke rising. The Boeing 707 hits hard. The plane bounces twice and skids to a stop in a cloud of dust. Outside, 30 armed men in keffiyehs surround the aircraft. More arriving in jeeps. The doors open.
Everyone off. Hands up. Move now.
Rob steps onto the emergency slide. It's already hot from the sun. His feet hit burning sand. Passengers gather in groups under armed guard. Guards with AK-47s circle them, shouting in Arabic. Minutes later, the Swiss Air DC-8 lands beside them. Same rough landing. More armed men arrive in trucks and jeeps. Dozens of them. Some barely look 18. They check passports, write down names, ask questions. Through the aircraft windows, hijackers are visible inside, wiring something to the seats that look like dynamite. The Jordanian army has now surrounded the area, but King Hussein won't order an assault. Too many hostages, too much of a risk. The world watches. Nobody knows what to do. As the sun sets, temperature drops. Guards force the hostages back onto the planes for the night. Rob is pushed into a middle seat on the TWA jet. Men only, about 60 of them. Women and children are taken to the Swiss airplane. Families separated. Along the cabin walls, bundles of dynamite are clearly visible, detonators near the exits. Rob tries to sleep. His body is exhausted, but his mind won't shut off. The man next to him, a rabbi from Brooklyn, whispers prayers in Hebrew. Others join in quietly. Armed Palestinian fighters patrol between the planes, headlights sweeping across the desert. Through a small window, Barbara can see Jerry on the tarmac getting interrogated. The guard raises his rifle to Jerry's chest. Jerry stops talking. Hands go up. A young mother tries to comfort her 2 children. They haven't eaten since breakfast. One elderly woman near Barbara has a panic attack, hyperventilating, clutching her chest. No medical help comes. Other passengers try to calm her, but eventually she passes out from exhaustion. The hours drag until morning finally comes, and day 2 begins. A hijacker addresses the hostages through a megaphone.
The PFLP has issued its demands to the world. Release all Palestinian prisoners from Israel, from Britain, Germany, in Switzerland. Hundreds of them. Militants captured over the years.
The deadline, 72 hours from now. Red Cross mediators arrive in white vehicles and begin negotiations. International phone calls are made. Governments scrambling. The United States issues statements. Britain convenes emergency meetings. Switzerland agrees to talk. Israel refuses to participate. Prime Minister Golda Meir states, "We don't negotiate with terrorists." But inside the aircraft, things get worse. Daytime temperatures exceed 100 degrees Fahrenheit. The metal cabins become ovens. Rob and the other passengers beg for water. Hours later, the Red Cross brings water, chlorinated, in plastic jugs. It tastes like swimming pool water. People drink it anyway. No choice. The toilet situation becomes catastrophic, overflowing, putrid. Guards film propaganda videos. They pull hostages out one by one for interviews. Rob is dragged off the plane. A camera is pointed at his face.
What is your name? Where are you from? What is your religion?
He tells them, David Robb, American, Jewish, businessman from Philadelphia. He says the guards are treating them well. It is not true, but the camera keeps rolling. A guard stands behind it with an AK-47. On day 3, passengers hear a new sound. A fifth plane appears in the sky, BOAC Flight 775, hijacked out of Bahrain, a Vickers VC-10. As it lands, fresh hostages pour out, over 100 of them, tourists, oil workers. The situation is getting worse, not better. Over in Cairo, Pan Am 747 got blown up after passengers evacuated. No casualties, but the message is sent. The deadline is now 24 hours away. A hijacker's voice echoes across the desert through a megaphone.
Some of you will be released today. Pray that you are chosen.
Guards start calling names from a list. Women, children, non-Jews. Barbara Mensch stands with Jerry. Surely they'll go together. A guard grabs her arm, points to a waiting bus.
What about my husband?
The guard shakes his head.
Jewish men stay. Orders.
Barbara fights, pulls away. Another guard raises his rifle at her chest. Jerry tells her to go. He'll be fine. Just a few more days. It's the last time she'll see him for 19 days. Rob watches families torn apart all around him. One by one, buses fill up. Rob stays behind with 55 other men, all Jewish, watching the buses disappear over the horizon. One hijacker addresses the remaining hostages directly in English.
You are now political prisoners. You will be released when our demands are met. This could be days. This could be weeks. Cooperate and live.
They're taken to tents. The waiting continues. Guards burst into the planes and tents before sunrise.
Everyone out. Now, move.
Rob and the other 55 hostages are rushed across the sand to waiting trucks. Behind them, hijackers are running from the planes, sprinting, getting distance. The trucks speed away fast. Rob looks back through the dust. Then, it happens. The TWA 707 erupts in a ball of orange flame. The Swissair DC-8 follows 1 second later, wings ripped clean off. The BOAC VC-10 explodes last. Black smoke mushrooms into the morning sky. Then, silence. The passengers stare in shock. Those were their planes, their way home. The trucks don't stop. They drive faster, away from the destruction. Through chaos, Amman's streets are filled with armed fighters, Palestinian militants, Jordanian soldiers, confusion everywhere. The trucks stop at a refugee camp on the outskirts of the city. Rob and the others are pushed into bare rooms, 20 men per room, one window, no beds, no bathroom. The waiting begins again. 3 days later, Jordan's King Hussein declares martial law. The hijackings have pushed him too far. Palestinian militants control too much of his country. Entire neighborhoods, army bases, roads. He's lost control over his own kingdom. The Jordanian army receives orders. Remove Palestinian militants by force. Tanks roll into Palestinian-controlled areas. Artillery bombardment begins. 10 days of brutal urban warfare. Thousands killed. Mostly Palestinian fighters and civilians. Some Jordanian soldiers. The PFLP fights back hard, but they're outgunned. By September 25th, the PFLP is defeated and forced out of Jordan entirely. But they relocate to Lebanon. The hostages are now trapped in the middle of a civil war. Artillery shells hit nearby. Rob and the other hostages huddle against the inner walls, away from windows. Tank battles 3 blocks away. The hostages don't know if they're about to be rescued or killed in crossfire. Days begin to blend together. Minimal food, 1 meal a day, rice, sometimes bread, and water. Every explosion could be the one that kills them. Jerry Mensch tries to keep everyone's spirits up. He tells bad jokes, shares stories about his life, and keeps talking to fight the silence. But everyone can hear the war getting closer. The Jordanian army is advancing. At night, tracer rounds light up the sky, red and green, like fireworks, but deadly. Nobody sleeps. Red Cross officials arrived at the camp on September 25th. A deal has finally been reached. Layla Khalid will be released from British custody. 6 other PFLP members from Swiss and German prisons. In exchange, all remaining hostages go free. Israel still refuses to release anyone. Prime Minister Meyer won't budge. Guards unlock the doors and tell the hostages to gather their things. Rob doesn't believe it until he's actually on a bus, actually moving. The convoy drives through destroyed city streets. Amman is in total ruin. Buildings collapsed, burned out cars, bodies still in rubble. The war has completely devastated the capital. At the airport, released hostages from earlier are waiting. Barbara among them. Jerry Mensch steps off. Barbara sees him and runs into his arms, both crying. Rob finds a phone in the terminal and calls his wife.
I'm alive. I'm coming home.
On September 30th, the last hostages board flights home. El Al offers free flights to any Israeli airport, then connections to final destinations. This is the final tally. 4 aircrafts destroyed, 3 at Dawson's Field, 1 in Cairo. Total value, over $50 million. In 1970s money, that would be hundreds of millions today. Only 1 hijacker killed, Patrick Arguello. 0 passenger deaths. Despite everything, all 310 hostages survived. But Jordan's civil war killed an estimated 3,000 to 5,000 people, mostly Palestinians. The PFLP achieved global attention, front page news for 3 weeks straight. But at what cost? They alienated potential allies, proved themselves willing to target civilians, destroyed any sympathy, and they received almost nothing in return. A few prisoners released from Europe, none from Israel. On the other hand, the Dawson Field hijackings changed aviation security permanently. In 1971, the first universal metal detectors were installed at major airports worldwide. Now, every passenger is screened, every bag checked. Sky Marshal programs expanded worldwide, armed guards on high-risk flights. The U.S. Federal Air Marshal Service went from 33 agents to over 1,800 in 6 months. Mandatory cockpit door locks cannot be opened from outside during flight. In December 1970, an international treaty is reached at the Hague Convention, criminalizing hijacking. Countries required to prosecute or extradite hijackers. No safe havens. By 1980, hijackings dropped 90% from 1970's peak. As for the hostages, David Robb testified before Congress in 1971 about the hijackings. He became an advocate for aviation security reform. Barbara and Jerry Mensch never flew again. They took ships, trains, drove everywhere. They stayed married for 47 years right up until Jerry's death in 2017. The rabbi who sat next to Robb wrote a book about the experience. They used it to teach about faith under duress. Layla Khalid was never prosecuted for her role. She became a PFLP icon, still alive to this day. She gives lectures and still defends the hijackings as necessary. Today, Dawson's Field is just empty desert again. Local Bedouins graze their goats there. They don't know what happened, or don't care. The hostages went home. Most never spoke about it again, but they survived, and aviation learned. September 1970, the month the world realized that nowhere was safe, that anyone could be a target, and that security couldn't be an afterthought anymore.